Create infinite realities.
Welcome to Sony's session, Shaping the Future of Entertainment and Innovation. As you may know, Sony's purpose is to fill the world with emotion through the power of creativity and technology. At Sony, we refer to emotion as the Japanese word kando, which means to be emotionally moved by something. In 10 years, what kind of kando do you imagine in the future? Sony thinks that we'll be living in a more multi-layered world where physical and virtual realities overlap without boundaries. If Sony, as a creative entertainment company, will be filling the world with new kando in that future, what kind of experiential value would we be offering to make that happen? To explore this question, we created the concept of creative entertainment vision, envisioning through the lens of Sony's creativity and technology. Now, let's watch the concept video with the key message of create infinite realities.
How far will imagination carry us? Farther than we can see. The limits, there aren't any. Not in time, not in space, not here. We're free as anything, free to dream and create. Colors you can almost touch, lights that dance in the dark, sounds you can feel in your bones. It's like magic, real magic. It gets under your skin, stirs something deep inside, and just like that, new stories start to spill out. Those stories, that fire inside us, it's catching, it's gonna leap, bound over the tangible, the digital, into realms untrodden, unimagined, beyond the edges of our little worlds, and into places no one's dreamed of yet. We're linking arms with every story out there, making them deeper, richer, something you can feel. They call it kando, that feeling. It's that drum in your chest. Because these dreams, they're not just ours. We're passing them on, handing them down toward a future that thrums with heart. Together, into the endless possibilities of kando. Create infinite realities.
So, what did you think of our concept video? You may have noticed different ways that IP can be handled or experienced, from creation to cross-media adaptations to immersive experiences. These are among many of the things that Sony's hoping to accomplish in the next 10 years. To realize this vision, there are many initiatives within Sony. Today, we will hear from members from Pixomondo, which is a Sony Pictures Entertainment company and member from Sony North America. Joining us on the stage from Pixomondo is Marco Ragazzino, Senior Producer and Short Film Director, Chris Banting, Integrated Motions Systems Technician and Cinematographer, and from Sony North America, we have Samuel Wilson Fairs, Senior Manager of Virtual Production Marketing. Please welcome Marco, Chris, and Sam to the stage. All right. Thank you for joining us this morning. Sam, I'm going to let you kick us off.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today here at SIGGRAPH 2025. We're excited to have you guys here and show off a little behind the scenes of what we did. Back in June, we were here in Vancouver at the Pixomondo stage, PXO, we would like to call it PXO Studios, where they have a very unique device called the AKIRA. It's actually a platform for vehicles. You can see in this photo here, on the slide. And we're going to talk about that special project that Sony worked together with Pixomondo and Sony Pictures creatively to be able to showcase all of these different virtual production tools that our engineers in Japan have created so that we can be able to use them creatively on a real working production. So let's take a look at real quick at the behind the scenes of this short film that we just shot in June. Thank you.
3, 2, 1. The Akira system really helps do a lot of the things that I would never be able to do on a location.
Having the ability to capture vehicles at any location at any time of day.
A system like this allows us to eliminate so many of those safety issues.
In a more precise way, in a more exact way, and faster way.
The technology has evolved. You can make anything that you want happen now. It's just giving you, as a filmmaker, a lot more freedom.
With the Akira platform, we have more opportunities to tackle more challenging shots.
We can actuate the suspension of the vehicle independently from the frame and the body.
We were able to have more freedom, especially working with different kinds of vehicles.
Marco lands on the hood. We're doing the dialogue exchange, and then Donna, you hit the gas. We're taking it all the way there. All right, set, Breeza. Within 1 week, we were able to do so many incredible action sequences with no time, no prep, no nothing. We wouldn't be able to do that unless we had tools like Akira combined with the virtual production volume. Hey, cut. Great.
That was just a little teaser at the end there of the short film. And you got to see behind the scenes of a real working movie set. And that's where we like to test our new products that are coming out later this year at the end of the year. And having this test be done in labs, we've done that already in Los Angeles, we've done that in the labs in Tokyo with our Sony engineers, but being on a real working set was very important to us. So we partnered up with Marco, who wrote, directed, and edited this piece. And we're gonna talk a little bit about how that whole story came to be so that we could not just create, a video showing out off the products on a set, but actually rely on the creativity from the Pixo team. So take it over, Michael.
Thanks, Sam. So what we wanted to do with this short is we didn't want to do just a typical demo reel where we just kind of show the technology being used and then, that's kind of it. And we really wanted to showcase the platform and all the tools that Sony's been developing within the context of how an actual production would use it. So what we decided to do was a complete narrative story featuring all of the tools that Pixomondo has been developing, including the Akira platform and our virtual production volumes, in addition to all of the Sony products that Sony has created, which is the LED panels themselves, the various cameras like the Venice 2 and the Rialto and the Burano, and their tracking system. So rather than just kind of do a whole behind the scenes tech presentation, we decided to do this short film, which is a narrative that is basically a throwback to the old 1960s, 1970s spy versus spy kind of vibe. So classic James Bond, classic Mission Impossible type stuff, old school style we wanted to incorporate into this short. So just like any other production, we started with storyboards. So I have some very crude drawings here. I know a lot of you folks out there are probably way more talented at this kind of thing than I am, but this is kind of how we got things kicked off. So we started with the storyboards, then we moved into more concept designs and trying to figure out what kind of characters we wanted to have in the short. So the way I kind of wrote this was, since we're kind of doing a throwback sort of feeling, we wanted to have a villain who was kind of cool, kind of charming, kind of very, kind of slick. So we went with a Richard Roundtree from Shaft sort of vibe. And some of the people I was kind of throwing out there were Sterling K. Brown and Coleman Domingo style. So we went with a very talented stunt performer named Marshall Bingham, who is also very capable as an actor. So we kind of lucked out with having someone who could take a beating and also deliver some really funny lines and just have a really nice time while we were filming. And he really brought that physicality and also the talent of a performer to the role, which was really awesome to have. We really lucked out with him. And our lead, Donna Benedicto, a Vancouver local, She was also really great. She brought a physicality to the performance and a sense of humor to it that we really needed. So this whole piece is very tongue-in-cheek. It's like kind of a wink and a nod to the audience the whole time. We kind of drop you into the middle of an action sequence as if you were just kind of walking into the middle of a film as it's taking place. So we kind of start off right away with mystery and intrigue, and then get right into a very elaborate snow bike chase sequence, followed by a chase sequence in an SUV, and then we take everything into a helicopter, and it just keeps escalating more and more to the point where it's starting to get a little out of control, a little wild, and it was a really fun time. So Donna also, her look is also highly inspired by that late 60s, early 70s aesthetic, and we went with that, and then we started modernizing it a little bit. So it's, it kind of fits in with a modern era, but also has a little bit of that throwback quality to it. And from there, now that we have dialed in our look with our actors, one of the key components is our vehicles, because the emphasis is on the Akira platform, which can fit, 8,000 pound payload? So we can fit anything as heavy as 8,000 pounds on the Akira platform with the ability to keep it spinning and pivoting and moving the way it needs to. So we really wanted to express how many vehicles you can actually fit on the platform and how much versatility you have with it. So we put everything but the kitchen sink onto that platform. We searched for muscle cars, very unique looking muscle cars, very reflective muscle cars, so that you get that virtual production ambient lighting that is very apparent within the vehicle. So you're not, your brain isn't thinking, oh, that must be green screen. It's really there, and it actually happened, and it feels tangible. We also had these really unique looking snow bikes. I've never seen these types of vehicles before. They're actually really cool. I'm sure local folks who live in cold climates probably have these kind of things all the time, but I was like, yeah, those are really cool. They have a really cool profile. They are like a cross between an ATV and a ski. So we had two of those. We glossed them up, and we made them look like they were actually like weathered, snow-beaten vehicles. And then we threw that on the platform, and we did a chase sequence involving two snow bikes. And then we had a helicopter where we took the rotor off so that it was, obviously that's not safe to have a active helicopter in a soundstage. But we put that on the platform. We did an elaborate helicopter fight sequence. And then we had custom motorcycles. We had a boat. There's a moment where we actually go on a boat in this thing. And all this happened within the span of a week. 10-hour shoot days max. We didn't go above 10 hours. And we were able to capture 6 minutes worth of nonstop action on 7 different vehicles within that short period of time. Additionally, we also had prop designs. We made our own custom props. So we 3D printed the MacGuffin, the device that everyone's chasing after. That is kind of kicks off the whole thing, and that is very much an action trope. So there is a Doomsday-esque device that they're trying to chase after, and we designed that from scratch as well, and we had LED lights in there, and all of that was practical. And then this is where we kind of segue into like the digital aspect of everything. We utilized Unreal environments. We created all these environments from scratch, and they were all rendered in real time, thus allowing us the ability to have flexible and dynamic environments on the set, on stage every day. So we could make adjustments on the fly. We did everything from a sky environment to a water environment. We have a city street, a tunnel, and we have a very beautiful looking Arctic environment, which kicks off our short. And so here's a good example of the environments that we utilized. And we have our actors kind of interacting and chasing through and moving at high speeds through these environments throughout the short. And I'm going to kick it over to Chris, our cinematographer, our resident cinematographer, to discuss a little bit more about what his process was like.
Thanks, Marco. Welcome, everyone. So starting with the concept and Marco's amazing storyboard drawings that we all love, we started implementing all the ideas with our virtual art department, saying, based on these drawings, here's the environments we need. How many environments do we have? Like maybe 5 environments?
6, I think.
6.
Including a 2D plate.
2D plates. And we started looking at sun direction and travel, so we could get screen direction of the vehicles, because then I could start looking at, well, where's the sun going to go? So we could start looking at when the car enters the tunnel and it exits the tunnel. Have we committed to the right sun direction? Is our actor going to be backlit, ideally for the entire scene? With that now, we could do lens reviews. I could throw up the images on the wall, or we could throw it up in Los Angeles or here in our stage, and we could do art department wall reviews and see what does it look like on the stage. We put the vehicles up, we could choose our lenses, and then as you can see here, we have 18 vortex lights, so we put in some practical lighting. With that now on the 2D plates, we can pixel map. So what that meant is as the plates were rolling, creating shadows with the trees and the sun, we put that into DMX, into each one of these lights, and it creates that image-based lighting to boost what we see on the screen. So that took them some time to programming, but the boys got it. In our next slide here, it shows it even better. So right next to the helicopter, you can see the actual sun. So when the platform itself is actuating or rotating, or the environment's rotating, each one of those lights would fire in sequence to simulate the sun. We really use this to, in let's say the close-up shots, to actuate the skin, have a nice fill on the skin, get some eye light. But in this instance where we couldn't have the rotor on the helicopter, we figured, well, why don't we just do it with a lighting pattern? So we programmed that in, and when you're in a close-up, it creates those on and off shadows, and that's how we cheated that. We did have some challenges, though, with the programming of the techno dolly for how do we make a helicopter take off and go in forward flight. So that took a bit of a challenge to figure those kind of shots out, or the snow bike needed to peel out and go, but the snow bike doesn't move, so we have to move the camera around there. So these challenges took us a while, but we definitely got it, and I'm looking forward to seeing the final product because I haven't seen it yet.
It is kind of wild how the combination of the environment moving, the platform moving, and just the camera doing a slight dip can create this wild illusion of a helicopter just taking off and going up into the sky.
It was super convincing. Once we got it, we're like, this looks real. So with the smoke, the lighting patterns, the camera movement, the correct choice of lenses, it looked amazing. Our next slide, what we're looking at here is we did a lot of rehearsals the week before, so we were able to get the pre-lighting done. We're able to review the plates, program the techno dolly, choose our lenses per scene, and Marco could work with the actors for a stunt rehearsal. During all these stunt rehearsals, then we could choose the lenses. We could hard mount cameras to the platform because it was actuating. So we found if we used some mod trusses and put some static cameras on, it actually moved with the vehicles, and it was very dynamic. Also, we had the wider shots on the cranes and everything, so between those two, it's going to look great in the cut. So we had an entire amazing technical team with us the entire week, so if we had any issues, we have Troy here from our virtual art department. We could say, we need more trees, we need the sun to move here, it's dynamic, we need to change the color temperature. All of that could be done on the fly as we were programming the techno dolly or deciding to go to a handheld shot, and we could see it instantly comp on the screen right away, so that was awesome. One scene we did have, Marco wanted to have the muscle car come out of the tunnel but do a spin out. We're like, okay, how do we show this? How do we do this? What ended up happening, you'll see in the next slide, the camera didn't move. All we did is move the background. We did one shot where we actuated the actual platform itself to show the start of the rotation, but then we were on the techno dolly right in front of the car, and all we did is spin the environment and program the lights, and it was super convincing. And with this platform, another great feature is you can actually start on rotating wheels to sell that movement and come up into the shot or a two shot and keep the camera moving. It's super convincing. I haven't been able to do that on any other platform before.
It was also kind of fun to ask Chris if he could get up on that platform and strap himself in and just hold on to the camera while the whole thing was spinning around. We stuck him in the back seat of the cars a few times, and so the thing's spinning around 360, and he's in the back with one of the Rialtos, and just really capturing, like, it just felt like you were, the whole point of it was to make sure that we felt like we were in a real world and everything felt tangible. And the way we were able to get those shots was really fun, and it was just fun to ask Chris, like, hey, can you hang on to the roof of the car while we spin it around a bunch of times?
Yeah, it'll be super safe. It's like a ride at Disneyland. So, and we found too is that we could just pivot to, if we had program shots that just didn't feel smooth enough, we would just have our dolly grip and our crane operator just live operate. Here's an example here. We just found we wanted to start tight on the grill, and we would just design a shot live. We record everything though, because if we like the shot, if Marco wanted to change any parameters within that, we can just play it back on the techno dolly, reprogram it infinitely. So all parameters there are program, tilt, roll, pan, focus, iris, zoom, everything is completely programmable. And Brisa is our amazing engineer on this platform, and she does all the movement and can program it. If we have our 3D environments, we do have the software that takes all that information and puts it into the wheel. So if a car in the environment is going over a bump, it happens on the platform.
And this is also how we decided, like, how are we going to shoot this? What is the feeling that we want to have with our shot designs? So rather than do a bunch of crazy, cool, out-of-control shots that the Techno Dolly can certainly do, we wanted to make sure that we were shooting this the same way that you'd shoot this if you were on location, and making sure that the shots felt like they were things that you could actually capture if you were out on location. And we didn't want the audience looking at the shots and going, well, that's a cool shot, but you can't do that. Like, you can't have an arc, a 360 shot go around a helicopter in the air. That's very difficult to do and probably not very safe. So we avoided doing things like that consciously. Not saying that filmmakers don't have that flexibility to do that if they want to, depending on the kind of shoot that they have. Like, the sky's the limit with this stuff. So, but for us, it was like, let's keep it real world action feeling so that the audience, when they're watching it, doesn't recognize the fact that we're on a volume.
We definitely had the tech to play with. Sam and his team of engineers from Japan came. We did a lot of testing that week with the Ocellus and everything, but we had the Venice 2 on the crane the whole time. We had the Burano for handheld, and the Mini Rialto was amazing, and especially the Ocellus tracking. I'll let Sam talk about that.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, so Sony really, has a unique position in this virtual production space, because not only do we make the cameras that are used in, cinematography and films that we see, like Top Gun and Avatar, now the new F1 movie, but we also have created this whole ecosystem for virtual production, which we have the LED panels, which we call the Crystal LED Verona, which the PXO studio has the largest installation of ceiling, wild walls, which we'll talk about later. And that Crystal LED being able to have that color consistency of what the creatives saw in previs, and then being able to see it on the LED wall in a photorealistic environment, right? And it's great for the actors too, because now they don't have to think, what am I looking at as I'm driving through, the fields? They're actually seeing everything that's happening, right? So not only do we have the LED wall and the camera, but now we've added 2 additional parts to the whole workflow process, which is the camera tracking system. Using our sensor technology, we've put 5 cameras on top of the camera, which allows us to then track the Venice or the Rialto Mini in that 3D environment by capturing a 3D point cloud of that space. And we call that the Ocellus. And this is the first production that we actually got to test it, stress test it, make sure that it was working properly. So we had the engineers there. Kudos to Yutaka, Okahashi, and also Junya, who were there from like 6 a.m. to 12, updating firmware and testing out things before the crew got on, so that it wasn't affecting the creative part of the process in the production. And then we also work together with our friends at Epic Games, Unreal Engine, which is the game engine that we're using to create these 3D environments, to have also a virtual camera in that 3D space. So we could take the virtual Venice with all the same settings and all the same ISO settings and the ND filters, and have that same look, including the color science of the Venice, and be able to take that and then translate it into the previs, so that everybody in the previs is looking at what they're going to see on the day of the shoot. And all those settings can then be saved and then put into the real camera on the day of the shoot, which you can't do that with any other camera. We have the tech that was used. On the next slide, we'll show you everything that was actually used on the set, and show you a little quick video clip of how it was working together. So we have the Venice 2, and on top of that was the Ocellus with the camera processing unit. The Burano was the handheld camera, as Marco mentioned, and the Rialto Mini is smaller than your iPhone. We were able to put that full frame sensor, 8.6K, from a Venice 2, not lose any of the quality of the original size of the camera, but just the footprint was so small that they were able to rig it right into the car, on top of the car, anywhere, really, near the wheels. And having that same IMAX quality video come out of that small little body was amazing. Especially the new thing that we tested out, which is still a prototype, but you could see it here at the Sony booth, is the Zin Spatial Capture. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but the Zin Spatial Capture, using Sony Alpha cameras to capture the world around us, and not only objects, but also a whole set. Like, we can capture this whole stage here using this spatial capture, and then be able to put that on an LED wall. Let's look at a quick clip on the next video of, that's the processing unit for the Ocellus. That's the Rialto Mini. You really can't see it. It's in the middle. It's that little gray thing behind the lens. That's the Rialto Mini there. And in this case, we put the processor for Ocellus in between the Mini and the camera body. And then let's take a look at one more slide here. You could see that one of the things that we're trying to use here is a new camera tracking system, but they also had set up a previous camera tracking system. So we were testing both and how they work, together, or when does one break and one, start to work again. So one of the things, because our camera tracking system is using imaging sensors, we're able to put it inside the vehicles, which I'll let Chris talk to you a little bit about that. Chris, tell us a little bit about what that was like, being able to take the camera. Normally, what happens when you put it inside of a vehicle?
We lose tracking. So obviously you can see our tracking rig up on the crane there. If we were to push inside the helicopter, instantly we're going to lose the frustum. We're going to lose tracking right away. With the Ocellus, we pushed it really hard. We tested it. We could put it anywhere. Throw a handheld rig in a car, throw it in the helicopter. We had tracking the entire time. So I'm looking forward to getting my hands on that. But the systems we used, a lot of handheld to have some dynamic shots, but we did do a lot of hard mount rigs onto the vehicle because it does move with the vehicle, it can spin with it, and that was the safest way to get it, and obviously it holds frame. And then all the program shots that we had on the Techno Dolly on the Venice too. So between those three, it's very dynamic.
And this is just an example of what that 3D Gaussian splat, we call S-splat for Sony splat, is from the capture that we used the alpha camera to then walk around this snowmobile, something that we couldn't easily download as a 3D asset. And especially it was so unique to this piece that we wanted to be able to have that 3D asset inside Unreal. So we scanned this, sent it over to our engineers in Japan, and within 24 hours, we basically had this 3D asset that we could use in Unreal. And not only objects, like I mentioned before, like they could do now full sets or environments and be able to capture that and put it on an LED wall. I know, Marco, you guys bumped into a situation where you needed this last minute.
Yeah,
right?
this tool was really important because originally that snow bike was supposed to be modeled by our VFX department, but because of all the other work that needed to get done on the environments before we shot, we didn't have enough time to model this particular asset, and we needed to have it as a background object in one of our shots. So the day before we needed to use this, we had the Zin team scan the bike. They had it processed, and when we arrived the next day, we had the 3D model, and I got to say, like, that scan came out really, really nice. Our team was able to inherit that scan, put it into the Unreal environment, animate a spline, and we had exactly what we needed within the first hour of that day. So then by the time we got to this shot, we were all set and ready to go. So it was a really, really fast turnaround and actually a really reliable scan that didn't really need a lot of work after we inherited it. So it was great for what we needed it for.
And that's also a prototype that will hopefully come out sometime at the end of the year as an application on your iPhone connected to a Sony Alpha camera. So stay tuned for that and check it out at the Sony booth. Let's talk about the Verona panels real quick. So this is a very unique studio because a lot of times they use cheaper, less costly LED walls in the ceiling and then the wild walls. But in this case, they're using the same Verona panels on everything from the ceiling to the wild walls. So we were also able to test our off-angle color consistency or color calibration in the corners where you get off-angle shifts sometimes. We were able to test that using the Sony plugin as well. But being able to give the creatives a photorealistic background, that's the key thing here, right? A lot of the tech is not important to the creative because they just want to see a photorealistic image captured on the wall so that when they are recording it into Venice, they're able to see it in camera and it looks realistic and not like virtual production is being used or green screen or any type of VFX. But there was some VFX also used, right? You had to render some stuff, Marco.
Yeah, there will be traditional VFX shots in this short. Our big sweeping vistas of like the Arctic or our establishing shots where we obviously did not go to those locations to film them. Those will be complete CG shots that our team of VFX artists are currently working on. In addition to here and there having to do a paint out of something. But other than that, everything is in camera and authentic to what we shot on the day.
And something else that we did with these LED panels was put them on wild walls, and they're very heavy. So how do we move them when we need to get reflections in the place we need to get them in? So Chris is going to talk about a little bit how those walls are being moved using a very intricate system of physics.
At our stage, we definitely have, like, our ceiling actually moves also. So it can be actuated, which way does it go? North and south, and either end of our stage. We can put practical lighting that actually pull into position. But the wild walls were moving constantly for every shot, and the way that our designers came up with it was air casters. So those little red boxes you see on there, under each one of those is an air bladder. Once we actuate that with air, these walls are 10,000 pounds each. They float. It's like a hovercraft. 2 people can push them very easily, put them into place. You let go of the lever, and it locks right down into place. Very intuitive to use, very safe. They're super quiet, but very easy to move for that much weight. For reflections, like Marco said, we did have a couple problems when on the helmet, we just couldn't get the camera reflection out. That's something that's easy enough to get scrubbed out. But in this instance, we needed a lot of reflections on the scene with the actress on the bike. So we just squeezed the walls in, and we just got the Techno Dolly in there, but that's how we achieved that shot. And a couple times we had to move it to get the vehicles out, so all we do is just mark it on the floor, move the walls, and move them back into position. So they're very intuitive, super easy to move.
Yeah, and speaking of safety, let's go to the next slide real quick, because, I mean, when they told me how many vehicles they were going to shoot in the limited time that we had to shoot it, I was like, there's no way you can get all of these vehicles in that short of amount of time. But I was proven wrong. And luckily, because, I mean, not only are we shooting inside like tunnels and things that you would normally not be able to get another car with a Russian arm to shoot those things, like we're able to shoot them now in a volume and make them look as if we are really in a tunnel or we are, in the air with very small, subtle moves, right? What did you guys feel about that quick turnaround and the time you had to make it happen?
It's something we have to give the confidence to the clients because they're used to just classic PMP where you drive a car in, you got your twigs beside the car, and you're shaking it with a stick. We have to give them the confidence that, yes, we can put 3 to 4 vehicles on and off in a day, and it's very quick. The helicopter, I think we had it on, it gets rigged from the top, lift straight up, and it's on in 20 minutes. We can pull that off, so the time to pull the helicopter off and forklift the car on, less than an hour, and that's fully rigged, safe, ready to go and tested. So it's very quick, very intuitive. Once our rigging team says it's safe, then we can start putting the mod truss on, mounting cameras, doing tests, bringing in practical lighting while it's all happening. So it's very, very fast. And like I said, we got 6 vehicles in 1 week, and we finished early on the last day.
And we also had a lot of practical effects too, to sell the idea that we're in the Arctic, we're flying at the, very fast on these snow bikes, traveling through this Arctic landscape. We've got practical snow being blown into the actors' faces with giant Ritter fans. I apologize for the mess that we made on the Akira stage with that. I think they're still cleaning up snow from that shoot. But all of that contributes to really selling the illusion, just like old school Hollywood classic movie making, where they used to have rear screen projection and they would just shake an actor in a car, and that's the same thing that we're doing now. It's just way more high tech, way more reliable, way more realistic, and you get a lot of bang for your buck when you incorporate all of these different filmmaking techniques into this one stage.
Yeah, so definitely having the time. We had the entire week before to pre-light, pre-rig, camera test all of Sam and his team's technology. We were ready to go on that next Monday, and 5 days of shooting it went super well. Everyone had a blast, but it's the first time I've ever been involved in trying to do something all in camera. So,
and thanks for allowing us to test on your stage during this production, right? Because it was like the thing we were really worried about was we don't want to let the technology get in the way of your creative vision. So, like, thanks for letting us be there and doing these stress tests on set.
I can't wait to see it come out. Thanks. Thanks, everyone.
All right, let's go ahead and give Marco, Chris, and Sam a big round of applause. All right, well, we will continue to evolve, unleash creativity for creators, and strive for a world of infinite realities, entertainment, and lots of excitement as we saw here. Once again, let's go ahead and give our gentlemen a big round of applause. Such a great conversation. Thank you for coming today here to Sony. Enjoy the rest of your time here at SIGGRAPH 2025. Thank you.